The Rossi empire moved billions of dollars every year. Drug money, shipping money, protection money, investment money, blood money. Most people thought the empire was held together by fear. Some thought it was held together by violence. Others believed it survived because of Marco Rossi. They were all wrong. It survived because of spreadsheets and the woman who built them. Sofia Rossi sat alone in a windowless office 3 floors beneath Rossi Enterprises headquarters. Her computer screen illuminated tired eyes hidden behind glasses. Rows of numbers flowed across multiple monitors. Transactions, accounts, shell companies, foreign transfers, tax records, investment portfolios. A maze of money that would make most financial experts collapse from exhaustion. To Sofia, it felt comforting. Numbers made sense. Numbers never lied. People did. People always did. The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m. She had arrived at work at 6 that morning. No one had noticed. No one ever noticed. That was fine. Invisible was safe. Invisible meant nobody stared. Invisible meant nobody laughed. Invisible meant nobody saw the body she spent every day trying to hide. The oversized gray suit hanging from her frame looked more like armor than clothing. That was intentional. Armor kept people away. A knock interrupted her concentration. She glanced up. One of Marco Rossi's assistants stood in the doorway. "The boss needs the quarterly reports." Sofia nodded. "Finished already." The assistant blinked. They were due tomorrow. They were finished yesterday. The assistant simply accepted the thick binder she handed over. "No thank you. No conversation. No acknowledgement, just another report, another invisible contribution." The assistant left. Sofia returned to her screens. 5 minutes later, her phone rang. She answered immediately. Financial control. Silence. Then a deep male voice. The Calabrese numbers. Marco Rossi. Her stomach tightened. In 4 years, she had spoken directly to him fewer than 20 times. Every conversation lasted less than a minute. He never greeted her, never asked questions, never made small talk, never looked at her. Only business. The territory projections are on page 27. Another pause. Expected losses? 3% first quarter, recovery by month 6. Acceptable. Click. The line went dead. Conversation over. Sofia stared at the receiver. That was Marco Rossi, one of the most feared men in New York, the man newspapers called a phantom, the man federal agents spent years hunting, the man who apparently knew she existed only as a voice attached to accounting reports. She returned to work, because work was easier than thinking. Work was safer than loneliness, and loneliness had become her closest companion. The following evening, Lucia's restaurant glowed with wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers, imported marble, private security, the most exclusive tables in Manhattan. The restaurant officially belonged to investors. Unofficially, it belonged to the Rossi family. Sofia hated being there. Important meetings meant presentations. Presentations meant being seen, or at least being visible enough to hand over paperwork. She adjusted her gray jacket, smoothed her hair, checked her binder, then entered the private dining room. The room instantly felt smaller, not because of its size, because of the people inside. Politicians, businessmen, capos, millionaires, killers. And at the center of them all sat Marco Rossi. He occupied space differently than other men. Not loudly, not aggressively, just completely. A black Brioni suit stretched across broad shoulders. A scar cut along his jaw. Dark eyes watched the room with terrifying patience. He looked like someone who never lost control. Across from him sat Antonio Calabrese. Beside Antonio sat his daughter, Vittoria. Beautiful. Perfect. Magazine beautiful. The kind of woman Sofia automatically stopped comparing herself to years ago, because losing hurt less when you didn't compete. Everyone knew why Vittoria was there. an alliance, a marriage possibility, a future queen for a future king. Sofia approached quietly. No one looked at her. As expected, she reached Marco's side, placed the binder beside him. Quarterly reports. Marco nodded once. Before he could open the binder, Vittoria spoke. Loudly, smiling, cruelly. Oh. Several people looked her way. Vittoria tilted her head. Your accounting department must be struggling. Silence. Sofia froze. Vittoria continued. I haven't seen such an unflattering suit since my aunt's funeral. A few uncomfortable expressions appeared around the table. No one spoke. No one stopped her. Vittoria smiled wider. Maybe she should try not eating quite so much at these dinners. The room went silent. Completely silent. Sofia felt heat rush into her face. Her hands trembled, not because it was new. It wasn't. She'd heard worse, far worse. But humiliation never became easier. It simply became familiar. She lowered her eyes, turned to leave. Then a chair scraped against the floor. Everyone looked toward Marco. The King of New York stood. Antonio Calabresi frowned. Marco? Marco ignored him, ignored the negotiations, ignored the $5 million territory discussion, ignored Vittoria. Instead, he walked past them all, straight after Sofia. The room watched in stunned silence. No one moved, no one understood. Neither did Sofia. She hurried into a private office. The door closed behind her. A second later, it opened again. Marco entered. For the first time in 4 years, they were alone. She gripped the binder tighter. What happened to the meeting? Marco stared at her. Actually stared, not through her, not around her, at her. The intensity made her nervous. His voice was calm. What is your name? Sofia blinked. What? Your name. She frowned. Sofia. You know. His eyes remained fixed on her. Your first name. Confusion flooded through her. Sofia. Where were you born? Brooklyn. When is your birthday? February 9th. How old are you? 28. Where did you go to school? She stared. What is happening? Marco took one slow step closer. The expression on his face was unreadable. Then he said quietly, because apparently I'm a fool who's employed you for 4 years and never actually seen you. And for the first time since joining the Rossi empire. Sofia Rossi had absolutely no idea what happened next. Sofia stared at him. For several seconds, she genuinely wondered if this was some kind of test. Maybe he had discovered something. Maybe he knew about the investigation she'd been conducting for years. Maybe this was the moment everything collapsed. Marco remained standing, waiting, watching. The silence stretched. Finally, Sofia placed the binder on the desk. You know where I went to school? His eyes narrowed slightly. You assume that? No. She swallowed. I know how your organization works. A corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile, not quite anything. Then tell me, you ran a background check before hiring me. His gaze didn't leave hers. Continue. You know my education. Continue. You know my father's name. The room became very quiet. Marco said nothing. Sofia's pulse accelerated. You know he died. Still nothing. Then Marco spoke. I know your father was murdered. She froze. The words hit harder than expected. Most people softened the truth. Most people called it an accident, or a tragedy, or unfortunate circumstances. Marco simply called it what it was. Murder. For the first time, she looked directly into his eyes. You knew? For 3 years. The air left her lungs. 3 years. 3 years he had known. 3 years he had watched her work. 3 years he had known exactly why she joined Rossi Enterprises. You should have fired me. Marco's jaw tightened. Probably. Why didn't you? His answer came immediately. Because you were useful. Sofia laughed softly. The sound carried no humor. That's honest. Would you prefer a lie? No. His gaze remained steady. Neither would I. Something shifted between them. Not romance, not trust. Recognition. For the first time, they were speaking as two people instead of boss and employee. Marco moved around the desk, sat down, opened the binder. His eyes skimmed the pages. Then he stopped. MIT. Sofia looked away. The familiar ache returned, the one she'd carried for years. I left. You were 1 year from completing your doctorate. She stiffened. You really did read everything. Marco ignored the accusation. Why leave? She hesitated, then realized she was tired of hiding. My father died. The words felt heavy. He was all I had. The office remained silent. He worked at the docks. Marco nodded once. He knew. Of course he knew. One night he didn't come home. She forced herself to continue. I spent months trying to find answers. Her fingers tightened. No police reports, no witnesses, no justice. Marco listened. Actually listened. I became obsessed. A humorless smile crossed her face. I suppose obsession is a Rossi family trait. That almost earned another smile from him. Almost. So I left school. She met his eyes again. And I came here. To investigate me. The accusation wasn't angry, just factual. To investigate everyone. A long pause followed. Then Marco nodded. Fair. Sofia blinked. That's it? What did you expect? I don't know. Neither do I. For a moment, something strangely human appeared beneath his cold exterior. Loneliness? It vanished quickly, but she saw it, and somehow that frightened her more than his reputation ever had. The following week changed everything. Sofia's basement office disappeared. By Monday morning, she had been relocated to the executive floor, directly beside Marco's office. The entire building noticed. Nobody understood why. Whispers followed her everywhere. Questions, speculation, fear. By Wednesday, she had attended 7 meetings she'd never been invited to before. Marco called her constantly. Not because he needed reports, because he wanted explanations. He asked questions, hundreds of them. How did she spot laundering patterns? How did she remember account numbers? Why did she organize information the way she did? What languages did she speak? How many? 6. His eyebrows actually rose. That alone felt historic. Each conversation became longer and stranger. Sofia found herself forgetting to be nervous, forgetting to hide, forgetting to disappear. Meanwhile, Marco watched. Always watched. Not her body. Not at first. Her mind, the speed of it. The precision. The way she solved impossible problems while absent-mindedly muttering equations to herself. The way entire criminal operations made sense to her after 5 minutes of analysis. The way she could identify financial weaknesses nobody else noticed. One evening, his lieutenant entered the office. Marco stood near the window, watching Sofia through the glass wall separating their offices. She was focused on her computer, completely unaware. The lieutenant followed his gaze, then smiled. Dangerous mistake. She's smart. Marco didn't answer. Never seen you interested in an employee before. Still nothing. The lieutenant's smile widened. So what's the story? Marco's eyes remained fixed on Sofia. No one speaks to her. The lieutenant blinked. What? No one. Marco's voice became colder. No one bothers her. No one flirts with her. No one looks at her. The lieutenant stared. Boss. Finally, Marco turned. Dark eyes met his, and suddenly the lieutenant understood this wasn't a joke. Not even slightly. Marco spoke quietly. She's off limits. Off limits how? A pause. Then, she's mine. The lieutenant nearly choked. Marco looked back through the glass. I haven't decided what kind yet. For the first time in years, Marco Rossi sounded uncertain. And that terrified his lieutenant more than any threat ever could. 2 weeks later, Marco announced they were attending a charity gala. Sofia immediately refused. No. Marco didn't even look up from his paperwork. You're going. No. Yes. I don't attend galas. You do now. Sofia folded her arms. Why? Marco finally raised his eyes. The look alone weakened her argument. Because you're hiding. She laughed bitterly. I'm working. You're hiding. His voice softened slightly. And I'm tired of watching it. The statement landed somewhere deep inside her chest. Dangerously deep. 3 days later, a designer arrived at her apartment. Then another, and another. 5 custom gowns appeared. Beautiful, expensive, impossible. Sofia chose the most conservative option. Naturally, Marco rejected it, then rejected all 5. The replacement arrived the following afternoon. Deep burgundy, elegant, unapologetic. The fabric traced every curve she spent years concealing. Her stomach, her hips, her thighs, everything. She hated it instantly, which probably explained why Marco loved it. The gala arrived. The hotel ballroom sparkled with wealth. Diamonds, politicians, celebrities, criminals pretending not to be criminals. Sofia stood inside a private suite staring at herself in the mirror. The dress fit perfectly, too perfectly. Every insecurity screamed at her. A knock interrupted her panic. The door opened. Marco entered, then stopped. Completely stopped. The room became silent. For several seconds he didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Sofia's heart pounded. The expression on his face was unlike anything she'd seen before. Raw, intense, dangerous. She looked away first. I look ridiculous. No. His voice sounded rough. She swallowed. I look fat. The silence lasted 2 heartbeats. Then Marco crossed the room, slowly, deliberately. His eyes never left hers. When he finally spoke, every word landed like a confession. You look like a queen. Sofia's throat tightened. Marco. You look like a woman who was made to be worshipped. The air vanished from the room. His gaze lowered briefly. Not ashamed, not embarrassed, honest. Every curve, every soft inch, every part of her she'd spent years trying to erase. He saw all of it, and somehow looked impressed. Not disgusted, not disappointed. Impressed. Marco extended his hand. The same scarred hand that had built an empire. The same hand feared throughout New York. His voice dropped lower. Come with me. Sofia looked at his hand, then at him, then slowly placed her hand in his. The moment their fingers touched, neither of them realized it yet, but everything had already changed, because for the first time in her life, Sofia Rossi was no longer invisible. The gala changed everything. By the end of the evening, nobody remembered the politicians. Nobody remembered the celebrities. Nobody remembered the charity. They remembered Sofia Rossi standing beside Marco Rossi. And they remembered the way he looked at her. As if she were the most important person in the room. As if she had always been the center of his world. The whispers began before the night ended. They only grew louder over the following months. Meanwhile, problems far more dangerous than gossip were forming. The FBI had spent 6 months building a case against the Rossi organization. And eventually, they came for Sofia. The agents approached her outside her apartment. Professional, polite, prepared. They knew exactly who she was. They knew exactly what she controlled. And they knew exactly which financial transfer could destroy Marco Rossi. The evidence connected him to the murder of a federal judge's son. One transfer, one record, one transaction. That was all they needed. We can protect you, one agent said. You can walk away from all of this. Another slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs, financial records, witness statements, years of investigation. Sofia looked at them quietly. Years earlier, she would have accepted immediately. Years earlier, she wanted answers. Justice. Revenge. But things had changed because she'd discovered something. Marco Rossi had not ordered her father's death. The Calabrese family had. And while she had been searching for answers, Marco had been protecting her. Threats had disappeared before reaching her. People investigating her had vanished. Attempts to sabotage her work had mysteriously failed. Someone had been standing between her and danger for years. And now she knew who. The realization hurt more than she expected. Because somewhere along the way, she had fallen in love with him, so she made her choice. That night she walked into Marco's office, closed the door, and told him everything. The FBI, the investigation, the evidence, her father, every secret, every lie, every hidden motive. When she finished speaking, silence filled the room. Marco sat behind his desk, motionless. His face revealed nothing. Finally, he stood. Sofia. The way he said her name made her chest ache. I told you the truth. His eyes met hers. You told me the truth now. She stepped forward. Marco. You investigated me for 4 years. His voice remained calm. Too calm. I needed answers. You lied. I was scared. You lied. The repetition hurt, because it was true. She swallowed. I'm sorry. Marco looked away. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked tired. Not angry, not violent, just tired. Then he walked past her, toward the door. Marco? He stopped, without turning around. I trusted you. The door closed behind him, and Sofia stood alone. 3 days later, federal agents arrived with arrest warrants. The entire organization prepared for disaster. Lawyers rushed through hallways. Phones rang endlessly. Everyone expected Marco Rossi to be taken into custody. Everyone except Sofia. Because during those 3 days she had barely slept. She had reviewed every database, every backup, every archive, every hidden server, and she had made a decision. When the agents arrived, the evidence was gone, completely gone. No transfer records, no backups, no copies, nothing. The case collapsed within hours. The FBI left empty-handed, and Marco finally understood. Sofia had destroyed the only evidence capable of protecting herself. She had chosen him, over her freedom, over her future, over everything. That realization hit harder than any bullet ever had. So he went looking for her. He found her after midnight, alone in her office, sitting in darkness. The city lights glowed through the windows. She didn't look up when he entered. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Marco broke the silence. I've known who you were for 3 years. Sofia slowly raised her head. He continued. When you were hired, I ran a background check. His voice remained steady. I saw what happened to your father. She listened quietly. I saw why you came here. A bitter smile crossed her lips. You should have fired me. Probably. The same answer as before, but this time it sounded different. Softer. I didn't. Why? Marco stared at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked vulnerable, because somewhere along the way the answer had stopped being simple. I protected you. Her breath caught. Every threat. His eyes never left hers. Every danger. The room felt smaller. Every person who tried to hurt you. Silence. Then he stepped closer. I knew you weren't telling me everything. Another step. I knew why you were here. Another. And I didn't care. Sofia's heart pounded. Why? Marco's expression softened. A rare thing. A dangerous thing. Because it was real. Because I wanted you to stay. The words landed between them, heavy, honest, terrifying. He exhaled slowly. You want to know what made me finally see you? She couldn't speak. It wasn't your intelligence. A faint smile appeared. I've always known you were brilliant. Tears gathered in her eyes. It wasn't your work. His voice lowered. It was watching someone insult you. The memory returned instantly. The restaurant. The cruelty. The humiliation. Marco shook his head. and realizing the smartest person I've ever met spent years hiding herself because she believed she didn't deserve to be seen. Sofia looked down. He gently lifted her chin. You deserve to take up space. Her eyes closed. You deserve all of it. For the first time in years, she believed him. The Calabrese family realized the federal case had failed, and they knew exactly who to blame, Sofia, which made her a target. 3 armed men intercepted her car one morning. It was their final mistake. Marco's response shook New York. Within 48 hours, he dismantled everything the Calabrese family had built. Businesses vanished. Accounts froze. Allies defected. Warehouses burned. Operations collapsed. The empire crumbled piece by piece. By the time it ended, everyone understood the message. No one touched Sofia Rossi, not if they wanted to survive. 6 months later, Sofia returned to another gala, not as an invisible employee, not as a curiosity, not as a rumor, as Sofia Rossi, Chief Financial Officer of Rossi Enterprises, public face of a growing corporate empire, a woman whose algorithms were transforming legitimate businesses across the country, a woman powerful enough that boardrooms fell silent when she entered, a woman no longer hiding. The crimson gown she wore wasn't designed to conceal her. It was designed to celebrate her. And for the first time in her life, she let it. The ballroom doors opened. Heads turned. The room watched. Marco stood beside her. Proud, unapologetic. Certain. Among the crowd stood Vittoria Calabrese, older, angrier, forgotten. Their eyes met briefly. Vittoria looked away first. Sofia smiled, not because she wanted revenge, because she no longer needed it. The greatest victory wasn't proving them wrong. It was finally believing they never mattered. Later that night, Sofia stood beside the penthouse windows overlooking Manhattan. The city stretched endlessly below. Marco approached carrying a small key. She accepted it. What is this? A new account. Her eyebrows rose. How much? 50 million. Sofia laughed. Only Marco could say that casually. He smiled. A real smile. Rare and genuine. It's yours. She looked at him. Why? Because you're building the future. The city lights reflected in the glass. The Rossi family is transitioning into legitimate business. He nodded toward the skyline. And you're leading it. Sofia studied him. And you? Marco moved beside her. Shoulder to shoulder. Equal, partners. I'll be right here. His hand found hers. Simple, steady, certain. And if anyone tries to destroy what we've built. A familiar spark entered his eyes. Sofia laughed. I know. He smiled. You do. The silence that followed felt peaceful. Not lonely, not empty. Peaceful. Years earlier, Sofia Rossi had believed she was invisible. A woman hidden behind spreadsheets and oversized gray suits. A woman afraid to be seen. Now she stood above New York. Respected. Brilliant. Powerful. Loved. Not because she changed. Not because she became someone else. But because she finally allowed the world to see the woman she had always been. And because one man had looked beyond the gray suit long enough to notice. The city glittered below them. The future waited ahead. And for the first time in her life, Sofia Rossi stepped into the light.